but to remind myself the truth echoes. Even when it hurts. One morning, a letter arrived. No return address. Handwritten. It was from Emily. She didn't apologize. Not really. But she wrote about fear, about pressure, about how becoming a mother terrified her, about how the day of the memorial she panicked and tried to grab joy before it disappeared. She wrote, I know I can't take it back, but I hope one day we can find our way back to each other, or at least remember who we were before this. I read it twice, then I put it in a drawer. Some stories don't have neat endings, but that doesn't mean they weren't worth telling. Part 4. Blood doesn't make you family. The letter from Emily stayed in the drawer. I didn't burn it. I didn't frame it. I didn't respond. I just kept it, because some wounds aren't clean slashes. They're bruises that linger under the skin, not obvious but painful. When touched. Mark asked if I wanted to talk about it. I didn't, not because I had nothing to say, but because I had too much. Some grief can't be spoken. It just has to settle. And in that silence, something began to shift. My relationship with my parents frayed quietly. There were no screaming matches, no dramatic ultimatums, just a growing space between us. Subtle, like a draft in a closed room. They still called, still sent texts, still asked how I was. But everything came with an asterisk. Your sister's due date is next month. We're planning a shower, just something small. You're invited, of course, but no pressure. I didn't answer those messages. I knew the rules. Forgive. Quickly, smile politely. Show up even when it hurts, but I was done following rules that only apply to me. Meanwhile, something unexpected happened. One of my closest friends, Naomi, reached out. She hadn't been at the memorial. She lived out of state and hadn't even known I was pregnant. But she'd seen the post, the original one, and listened to the podcast. She sent a message that just said, I'm coming to visit. No pressure to hang out. I just want to be nearby. When she arrived, she brought soup, puzzles, and a playlist called Gentle Rebellion. We didn't talk much at first. We just existed, side by side. She read. I wrote. She napped. I cried. One evening, as we sat on the porch wrapped in mismatched blankets, she said, it's okay to build a family from scratch. I looked at her. I mean it, she continued. You don't have to keep chasing people who keep hurting you just because you share DNA. That idea had never felt like an option, but suddenly, it did. Over the next few weeks, I started making different choices. I unfollowed people who made me feel small. I muted group chats that felt like landmines. I reached out to people who had shown. Not perfectly, but honestly, I even started a small writing group. Just 5 women who connected to the post. We met over Zoom every Sunday. We called ourselves the Uninvited. A joke at first, but one that stuck. We wrote about grief, rage, joy, rebirth. We didn't apologize for making others uncomfortable. Then came the baby. Shower invitation. From Emily. Printed, embossed, mailed. Not an email. Not a text. A deliberate message. I held it in my hand for a long time. Not because I was considering going, but because I was shocked she even bothered. Mark watched me from the kitchen. You don't have to go, he said softly. I know. You don't even have to think about going. I smiled, tired. I'm not. I'm thinking about sending it back. Covered in glitter. He laughed. That's more like it. I dropped the invitation in the recycling bin. No ceremony. No second thoughts. And it felt like the first real boundary I'd ever held with her. Days turned into weeks. I didn't attend the shower. I didn't call when the baby was born. I didn't send gifts, and the sky didn't fall. Instead, I poured my energy into the things that fed me. Writing, cooking, gardening. Mark and I started talking about adopting a dog. Then, one rainy Saturday, we walked past a shelter and fell in love with a shaggy, nervous mutt named Clover. She had one ear that flopped and eyes that looked like they'd seen some things. She was perfect, bringing. Her home was like resetting the atmosphere in our house. Suddenly, there were walks and routines and little joyful chaos again. And for the first time in months, the silence didn't feel so loud. Naomi visited again. This time, she brought a bottle of wine and a stack of old magazines. I figured we'd vision board, she said. I raised an eyebrow. Seriously. Why not? You survived emotional napalm. Let's design your comeback. We cut out photos, words, colors. Hers was filled with art supplies, travel photos, and affirmations in neon pink font. Mine was quieter. A small cottage. A pen. A woman sitting alone by a lake. The last thing I glued on was a phrase ripped from a headline. The life you rebuild is yours alone. I didn't know where that life was yet, but I knew I was building it brick by honest brick. Months passed. I received updates about Emily's baby through our parents, though I never asked. Apparently, she named the girl Isla. A pretty name. A soft one. I tried not to imagine her tiny face, or the way she'd smell, or the first time she'd laugh, but something sneak in. One night, I dreamed I was holding her. In the dream, Emily was watching from the shadows. Silent, crying. I woke up sobbing. Clover climbed into bed and curled around me. Mark said, "Do you want to talk about it?" I shook my head. Not yet. The writing group grew. We started calling our meetings Story Sanctuary. It wasn't therapy, but it was healing. One woman shared a piece about her estranged brother showing up drunk to her son's funeral. Another wrote about her mother pretending her abortion had never happened. And one wrote simply, "My family erased my miscarriage, so I wrote it back into existence." We held each other across screens, across states. And in that shared vulnerability, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. The longing. On what would have been my due date. I didn't leave the house. Mark made breakfast. Clover guarded my socks. I lit a candle, and I read every message, every letter, every comment I'd saved over the months. Then I wrote a new post. Today isn't about what I lost. It's about who I am now. I am someone who survived, who set boundaries, who told the truth. I am someone who will never apologize for grieving out loud. And if you're reading this, you're not alone either. I turned off my phone and spent the rest of the day watching the rain. Not sad. Not healed. Just present. Emily never responded to the letter I didn't send. She posted photos, of course. First words, tiny outfits. The curated chaos of motherhood. But we remain distant. Not enemies. Not friends. Just estranged. I stopped needing her to understand. I stopped needing closure that depended on someone else. Instead, I found peace in the small, quiet defiance of living well. Some days, the grief still shows up. When I see a stroller. When I smell baby shampoo. When I hear a song I used to hum to the belly that's no longer there. But grief doesn't scare me anymore because it reminds me of love something deeply. And that love changed me. One night, Naomi and I were video calling. She asked, Do you think you'll ever reconnect with her? I thought for a long time. And then I said, maybe, but only if she learns the difference between sharing joy and stealing space. Naomi nodded. That's fair. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I'd said the exact right thing. Part 5. Forgiveness is not a hall pass. Forgiveness used to be a finish line for me. It was the goal I thought I had to reach in order to be good, the right kind of daughter, the healthy kind of person. I believed that forgiving someone, especially family, was proof that I had healed. But the older I got, the more I realized something critical. Forgiveness isn't the end. It's the beginning, and it doesn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it just means releasing the hope that the past could be different. The writing group, the uninvited, met that Sunday afternoon as usual. One of the newer members, Alina, was quiet most of the session. Normally she was chatty, a mix of sarcasm and poetry, but that day she only listened. At the end, I asked if she wanted to share. She nodded, took a breath, and read. Everyone told me to forgive my sister, that it was the mature thing to do, but no one ever asked her to apologize. No one told her to acknowledge what she took from me. They just wanted me to be quiet again. But forgiveness without accountability is just another form of silencing. Silence followed her words, not awkward, but thick with understanding. Then someone whispered, in that part, I messaged her afterward. Thank you for saying that. She replied, thanks for giving it a place to be said. That night, I thought about Emily again. I wondered if she felt forgiven. We hadn't spoken in nearly 6 months. But our parents still acted like a reunion was inevitable. Maybe at Isla's first birthday, Mom had hinted in a voicemail, it'd mean so much to your sister. The assumption beneath her voice was clear, that forgiveness should follow. Like a reflex. That peace meant pretending it never happened. But I couldn't pretend anymore. Not for them. Not for anyone. I met my father for coffee a few days later. He'd asked, gently, if I had time. I agreed, mostly because I missed him, not because I wanted another lecture. We sat in a quiet corner of a cafe near my house. He looked older. Then I remembered, like the months had dragged weight across his shoulders. He didn't start with small talk. I read the posts, he said. All of them. I sipped my drink. And I think you were brave. I didn't expect that. But, he added carefully, I worry you're holding on to the anger. I'm holding on to my boundaries, I said. He nodded, but I could tell it unsettled him. She's your sister. He said softly, and I'm your daughter. His eyes flicked up to mine. I know, he said. I'm trying to do better. I'm listening more now. That meant something. Not everything, but something. Before we left, he handed me a small envelope. Emily wanted me to give you this, he said. I stared at it. Did you read it? No, that's for you. I nodded, slipped it into my bag, and left without opening it. It took me a week to read the letter. It wasn't long, just a few lines in. Emily's swirling handwriting. I wish I could go back. I wish I had made different choices. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I do hope you're okay. I think about you more than you probably realize. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't nothing. I closed the letter, took a breath, and slid it into the same drawer as the first dot mark asked if I wanted to respond. I shook my head. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Do you think you've forgiven her? I think I've stopped needing her to fix it. And that felt like its own kind of peace dot in therapy. I started talking more about the miscarriage itself. For months, all the focus had been on Emily, the announcement, the aftermath. The online storm dot, but underneath it all, I had barely touched. The actual grief, the baby, the dream, the version of myself that had been building a nursery instead of boundaries. One session, my therapist said, what if forgiveness wasn't about Emily at all? What if it was about forgiving yourself for not seeing it sooner or for hoping she'd be different? I cried for the rest of the hour because I had hoped, and letting go of that hope felt like another death. Months passed. The group kept growing. The podcast host invited me back once more, this time for a live event. I almost said no. But Mark encouraged me. You're not doing this for her, he said. You're doing this for you. And for everyone who thought they had to stay, silent. So I went, the room was filled with strangers. But when I spoke, I felt less alone than I ever had at any family gathering. Afterward, a young woman came up to me in tears. My mom skipped my graduation to help my sister plan her gender. Reveal, she said. Everyone told me to get over it. Your words made me feel sane. I hugged her dot, and for the first time, I understood something deep in my bones. Forgiveness can be quiet. It can look like speaking truth. It can look like no longer shrinking. Isla. Turned one in the spring. I didn't go to the party. Instead, I went to the lake house with Mark and Clover. We packed sandwiches and played music and read books on the porch. At sunset. I lit a candle, not for grief, but for clarity. Later that night, I wrote in my journal, I can love someone and still say, no more. I can understand someone and still choose distance. I can forgive someone and still protect myself. Forgiveness is not a hall pass. It's a boundary with a heartbeat. Emily never followed up. No more letters. No messages. We settled into a silence that didn't feel hostile. Just final. And that was okay. The writing group hosted its first in-person retreat that summer. 15. All of us, a cabin in the woods. Meals cooked together. Stories shared over tea. The final night, we each stood up and read something personal. When it was my turn, I read from that journal entry. When I finished, the room was quiet. Then someone whispered, "Amen." And I knew in that moment I had finally forgiven myself for the silence, for the waiting, for the hope that kept me tethered to pain. Forgiveness didn't change the past, I changed. It gave me back my voice, my power, my future. And that was more than enough, part 6. The power of letting go. Letting go isn't the event, it's not a single act or decision, it's something you do 100 times a day, sometimes without realizing. You let go in the way. You stop checking your phone for a message that never comes. You let go in the way you walk past a store that once held memories and don't stop. You let go when the pain doesn't vanish, but it no longer controls you. Spring shifted to summer. The trees outside my window bloomed a deep, vibrant green. The air turned heavy with sun and cicada songs, and I found myself settling into a kind of quiet I hadn't known in years. Peace. Didn't feel like fireworks, it felt like breathing without flinching. One morning, while watering the tiny herb garden I'd stubbornly planted on our apartment balcony, I caught myself humming. Not a song I knew, just a melody. It felt good, simple, unattached. It hit me suddenly how long it had been since I'd done anything without tying it back to loss. This time, I wasn't doing it for healing. I wasn't doing it to prove anything. I was just living. Naomi called. Later that day, I was thinking, she said, we should take a trip. Just us. Where? Doesn't matter. Somewhere with open skies. Bad cell reception. Big energy. I laughed. You're speaking in Pinterest again? I'm serious. We've earned a reset. We settled on a cabin in the mountains, halfway between her city and mine. Just 3 days. Enough to unplug, talk, and breathe. We didn't talk about Emily much, but we did talk about the different kinds of grief. The kind that arrives like a wave, sudden and crushing, and the kind that lingers like fog, low, dense, constant. Go, Naomi said over her second cup of coffee, isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's about deciding it doesn't get to own every chapter. I nodded. So, what if it still owns a few? Then you're honest. And healing. Anyway, after the trip, I did something unexpected. I cleared out my grief folder on my computer. Hundreds of screenshots, drafts, messages, things I'd held onto, like proof. I saved a few. The ones that still made me feel seen. But I archived the rest. Then I opened a new document. Blank. Titled Next. I didn't know what I would write, but I knew it was time to begin. My writing group noticed the shift before I did. You seem lighter, one of them said. Like something cracked open. I'm not sure what happened, I admitted. You let go, another replied. And you didn't announce it, you just did. I saw my mom at the grocery store in July. It had been over a year since the memorial. We bumped carts in the produce section. Her eyes went wide. She looked older, somehow smaller. Oh, she said, then offered a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Hi. Hi. We stood in awkward silence for a moment. I reached for some peaches. She stepped back like I might shatter. You look? Well, she said, so do you. Another pause. Ben. Carefully. She talks about you, Emily, a lot. I'm sure she does. She misses you. I didn't say anything. She named Isla's middle name after you. That one hit harder than I expected. I blinked. Why? She said, you shaped her. Even if you're not in her life. That was the moment I realized I wasn't angry, just tired. I wish she'd let me shape her in kindness. I said softly. My mom teared up. I do too. We didn't hug. We didn't argue. We just stood there, surrounded by ripe fruit and strangers. Then I turned and walked away. That night, I pulled out the letters again. The ones from Emily. I reread them slowly, and I didn't cry. Instead, I opened a blank page and wrote her a reply. Not to send, not for closure, just to write. I wrote, I hope your daughter grows up knowing what boundaries look like. I hope she learns that love can coexist with honesty. I Hope she never has to choose between loyalty and her own well being. And I hope someday you understand what it means to be truly accountable. Then I closed the document and never opened it again. In the fall, I went back to therapy, not because I was drowning, but because I wanted to build a life not based in reaction. But in creation. We talked about joy. About how hard it is to let yourself feel it when you've trained your brain for pain. I smile and then immediately think, what if it ends? I confessed. That's okay, my therapist said. It's your nervous system catching up. You just have to let it feel both. Both. Joy and fear, hope and memory. Love and grief. Letting go didn't mean leaving anything behind. It just meant not carrying it in the same way. Mark and I adopted a second dog. Clover needed a friend. And honestly, so did we. We named her Dottie. She was chaos in a fur coat, all teeth and tumble. Loud where Clover was silent. Watching them play was healing in its own strange way. No expectations. No past, just presence. I started teaching writing part dash time. At first, I thought no one would care what I had to say, but my class filled up quickly. The students didn't want structure or formulas. They wanted voice, permission, honesty. I told them what I wish someone had told me. Writing won't save you, but it will give your pain a place to land. They listened, and they wrote like their lives depended on it. Maybe they did. Around the 1 year anniversary of the memorial, I got a message from Emily. Just a simple DM. I'm thinking of you today. I hope you're okay. I stared at it. No photos, no subtext, no performance. Just a sentence. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't need to anymore. Letting go wasn't a grand gesture. It was walking away from the noise. It was deleting the draft instead of sending it. It was standing still when everyone expected you to run. Some days, the grief still tugged at me. But it didn't drown me. Some days, I remembered the life I thought I'd have, but I didn't resent the one I was building. Some days, I felt a twinge when I saw a toddler in a grocery cart, or a mother brushing her daughter's hair, but I smiled anyway, because the ache meant I had loved, and that love made me who I was. Letting go didn't mean letting her go. It meant letting go of the version of myself that needed her approval. The one who believed family meant unquestioned. Loyalty. The one who kept breaking herself to keep others comfortable. That version served me once, but she was tired, and I was ready to be someone new, someone soft, but not weak, honest, but not cruel, vulnerable, but not apologetic. Letting go wasn't the end. It was the beginning of everything else. Part 7, the life I chose. The house wasn't big. It had 2 bedrooms, creaky wooden floors, and a garden that needed more love than I knew how to give. But it was mine. Ours. Mark, and I closed that spring, just before the lilacs bloomed. It's out on the edge of town, close enough to walk to the library, but far enough that the nights were quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. Just still. I didn't cry when we got the keys. I laughed because I realized, standing in the middle of that dusty, sunlit kitchen, that everything I had thought I needed was gone. And I was still here, whole, rooted. Not because life gave me back what I lost, but because I finally stopped chasing what wasn't coming. The day we moved in, the writing group sent flowers. The note just said, "For the woman who built herself from scratch." I taped it above my desk. Clover and Dottie took to the house immediately. Clover curled up under my writing table. Dottie ran circles through every room, barking at the echo of her own feet. Mark painted the hallway a color we argued about and then ended up loving. I planted rosemary and lavender outside. The kitchen window. Every morning smelled like earth and coffee. Every evening. We watched the sky turn gold and gave names to the clouds. Naomi visited often. Once, she stood in the backyard with a glass of wine and said, "This doesn't feel like a house. It feels like a decision." I knew exactly what she meant. This wasn't the life I was handed. It was the one I fought for, the one I chose. One morning, I got an email from a publisher. They wanted to compile essays from survivors who had written about family estrangement. and grief. They had read my posts. Would I consider contributing? I hesitated dot not because I didn't want to, but because I wanted to make sure I had something new to say dot something beyond the pain, beyond the reaction, something about becoming dot so. I wrote a piece called After the Wreckage. It started like this. Grief didn't destroy me, dot it undressed me. Peeled away the layers I thought I needed. Good daughter, quiet sister, always forgiving. What was left was someone real dot raw. Messy, but mine. They'd published it, dot, it resonated, dot, and suddenly I wasn't just healing in private. I was healing out loud, dot, one evening. I got a letter in the mail, dot, handwritten, dot, again, dot, from Emily. I almost didn't open it. But I did, dot, it said, I read your essay. I don't expect you to reach out. I just wanted you to know I heard you, and I'm sorry. That was it, dot, 4 lines, dot, no justification, dot, no defense, dot, just an apology. I didn't cry. I didn't reply. But I exhaled something I didn't know. I was still holding. Letting go didn't mean the pain was erased, but it meant it didn't get to drive. Anymore, dot, Mark and I started hosting Sunday dinners. Nothing fancy. Just a rotating group of people who made us feel like ourselves, dot, Naomi. A few neighbors. Sometimes someone from the writing group passing through town. We laughed, dot, we shared stories. We burned things. Occasionally, and didn't apologize, dot, no one asked if Emily would come, dot, no. One talked about what had been lost. We talked about what we were. Building, dot, one night, after everyone left, I stood on the porch with Mark. He slid an arm around me. Happy? I nodded. Think you'll ever want to talk to her again? I thought about it, dot, and then I said, maybe, but not because I need to. Only if it feels right. That's fair. I used to think family meant always. He looked at me. And now? Now, I think family means safe. Kiss the top of my head. That's the only definition that matters. Seasons shifted again. The lavender bloomed taller. The dogs grew older. I started working on a book. Essays. Poems, vignettes. All about rebuilding. Reclaiming. Redefining. I called it the life I chose. Because that's what it had become. Not perfect. Not pain-free. But mine, dot, and that made all the difference. I never stopped thinking about the baby. Some lost is carved. Permanent rooms in you. But now, when I thought of them, it wasn't only grief, dot, it was gratitude, dot, they changed the way I moved through the world. Softer, more aware, more honest, dot, they taught me that love isn't measured by duration, but by depth, dot, and that some things are so real. They leave their shape behind, even when they're gone. I never spoke to Emily again, not because I hated her, but because I'd told the truth, and she had heard it. That was enough. On the second anniversary of the memorial, I went back to the spot. Alone, I brought sunflowers. I didn't make a speech. I didn't post anything online. I just sat, dot, breathed, dot, remembered, dot. And then I whispered, thank you for teaching me what to hold and what to release. And then I stood up and walked away. Not broken, not bitter, dot, just whole. People ask, sometimes, how I found peace. I don't have a simple answer. Just know it didn't come all at once, dot, it came in pieces, dot, and letting go of inherited. Expectations, dot, and grieving out loud, dot, and choosing love that didn't hurt, dot, and staying, dot, and rebuilding, dot, and saying, this happened. It changed me, and I am still here. This is the life I chose, dot, with open windows, dot, with soft mornings, with people who see me fully, with laughter that doesn't carry guilt, with quiet that feels like grace, dot, with love that doesn't ask me to shrink. And maybe, just maybe, that's more than enough.